My own son told folks I was losing my mind, said I was senile, said I wasn't safe on my own no more. But what he really wanted was my pension, my house, the money I saved from cleaning schools and frying chicken for 38 years. He locked me up in a care home like I was already gone. Told my neighbors I needed help, told the bank I couldn't make decisions no more. But what he didn't know, child, was that I still had enough mind left. Enough to keep my eyes open, enough to let the truth stack up like receipts, and enough strength to bring him a burden he ain't never gonna forget. So if you're sitting there thinking nobody sees you, nobody hears your side, sit with me for a while. I got a story to tell. If you've ever been cast aside by the same child you carried and raised, if someone you gave everything to turned around and treated you like a burden, then this story might feel familiar. This isn't just about money. It's about being forgotten, about watching the people you poured into act like you don't matter once they get what they want. So while you're listening, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I know I'm not the only one this happened to. And if you've been through something like this, your story deserves to be heard too. You can share it down below or send it to the email in the description. Some of us are just trying to be seen. And I see you. You're not alone, not this time. My name is Eloise Jackson. I'm 78 years old, born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. I've been through things this world don't even bother to write down anymore. Grew up with holes in my shoes, and a mama who taught me how to stretch a bag of rice into 3 days of meals. I didn't have much, but I had enough to know what mattered. I was a school cafeteria cook for 31 years, fed other people's kids with the same care I gave my own. And when the workday ended, I went and cleaned houses in the evening. I never had the time to dream big, but I made sure my son did. Darius, my only child, born on a humid Thursday in July, right in the middle of a blackout. That boy was my whole world. Smart, respectful, curious. He used to come home with library books so thick I had to squint to see the titles. I remember sitting on the edge of his twin bed helping him study vocabulary while my feet ached from standing 12 hours. But I did it every night, because I believed in him more than I believed in anything else. I went without so he could have. I didn't buy new shoes so he could go on the school trip. I skipped dinner so I could keep his math tutor paid. And no matter how tired I was, I made it to every PTA meeting, every open house, every band recital. I didn't just raise a boy, I built a life around him. So when he graduated college, I cried like the sky opened up. That little boy I once rocked to sleep had become a man, and when he met his wife, I was happy for him. I truly was. She seemed quiet at first, polite even, but something changed, not just in her but in him. Little by little Darius stopped calling as much, stopped stopping by. Then came the whispers, the long pauses on the phone, the quick goodbyes. I tried not to think much of it. I told myself maybe he was just busy. But looking back now, that was the start of it. The shift, the silence that wasn't just distance, it was warning. And still, even with all of that, I never thought he'd be the one to look me in the face and call me a burden. It started slow, quiet, like dust settling in a room you ain't noticed been closed off. At first, it was Darius's wife, making comments when she thought I couldn't hear. Things like, she keeps repeating herself, or, you sure she remembered to take her meds? I'd be standing right there, folding towels or peeling potatoes, and she'd say it like I wasn't even in the room. Then Darius started treating me different too. He'd stop by with that tight smile. Not warm, just polite. He'd look around like he was checking on a guest, not his mama. Then came the pills, little white ones added to my morning set, said they were just supplements for my memory. I didn't question it much then, I trusted my boy. But things started getting foggy. Real foggy. I'd be halfway through a recipe and forget if I'd added the salt. Couldn't recall if I'd locked the back door. Some days I felt fine, sharp, and others like I was walking through water. What I didn't know was that they'd started doubling my dosage. Not a doctor, not someone I trusted. Just Darius and his wife, making calls on my behalf. They said it was for my safety. Said I needed help. Then came the papers. Slipped in with my church donation envelopes. Slipped in while I was making tea. I'd sign what they put in front of me, 'cause I thought it was for insurance, or bank stuff, or maybe just household bills. But one morning I woke up somewhere unfamiliar. My body felt heavy. My head cloudy. The bed was too stiff. The window was too small. And there was a woman with scrubs and a clipboard standing over me saying, "Good morning, Miss Jackson. Welcome to Golden Oaks." Golden Oaks. Not a vacation. Not a hotel. It was a nursing facility, a full-time elder care center. Locked doors, set schedules, strangers brushing your hair and calling it kindness. No warning, no goodbye, no suitcase, just me, a bed, and a printed copy of rules taped to the wall. And Darius? He was gone. Just gone. No call, no visit. He signed me away and vanished like I was a problem he'd finally solved. It didn't hit me all at once. It came in pieces. Like the way the nurses looked at me, kind but careful. Like I was fragile glass about to crack. One day I heard two of them whispering in the hallway right outside my room. One said, "Poor thing. Her son's wife told intake she was a risk to herself. Said she forgot how to use the stove. Said she wandered out the house at night." The other one answered, "They marked her as early-stage dementia. That's why she's in long-term." I sat there. Still. Real still. I ain't never wandered nowhere. I know my stove like the back of my hand, and I still balance my checkbook better than most folks half my age. But there it was, in black and white, in their charts, in their files. My name, twisted into something I didn't recognize. That was when the fog started to lift, not just from the medicine but from the lie I'd been living in. I asked to see my intake papers. They told me I couldn't, not without a responsible party present. You know who that was listed as? Darius. He had signed off on everything. Said I couldn't make decisions for myself anymore. Claimed he had medical power of attorney. Gave them a copy of my driver's license and an old prescription list. Stuff he must have taken from my drawer when I wasn't looking. And the worst part? He didn't even come to check on me after. Not once. Not one call. Not a single visit. He had what he wanted. The house, the money, the silence. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I had missed signs, forgotten things. Maybe I was too much. But then I started remembering. Remembering raising that boy on food stamps and faith. Remembering how I patched his pants when they split at the knees. How I worked double shifts just to buy him a tuxedo for prom. How I sat by his side through every fever, every heartbreak, every scraped knee and broken arm. And now he was somewhere living in my house, seeping in my room, probably using my linens, and telling the world I was crazy. They didn't just try to take my freedom, they tried to erase me. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal. Now I ain't one to believe everybody's bad, not even after all that. And thank the Lord I didn't, because if it weren't for Miss Camille, I don't know if I'd be sitting here telling this story. She was one of the evening nurses. Quiet, kept her head down mostly, but her eyes saw everything. Sharp, smart, and kind, in that way that don't need showing off. She wore this little gold cross necklace that caught the hallway light when she walked past. Said it belonged to her mother. I liked her from the moment she handed me my water and said, "You don't seem confused to me." It was the way she said it too, not as a compliment, but as a fact. Like she knew something wasn't sitting right. She started asking questions, real gentle at first. Asked what year it was just to see if I'd stumble. I told her 2025 and that gas was too high, same as my blood pressure. She laughed. Then she asked if I knew where I was. I said, "Golden Oaks Nursing Facility, and I didn't ask to be here." That's when her face changed. Over the next few nights, Camille would bring me tea and sit a spell on the little bench outside my door when her rounds were done. We talked. I told her things in pieces. About Darius. About the way things had changed. About the medications I didn't recognize and the papers I never remembered signing. She listened like somebody raised on stories. Never interrupted. Never made me feel foolish. Then one night, she came in with a manila folder under her arm, and that little cross shining against her scrub top. She looked at me and said, "Miss Eloise, I pulled some of your records, and something don't sit right with me." Turns out my medication list had been altered 3 times over 2 months. My chart had notes marked "Observe Confusion," but none of it came from staff. It all came from what they called family input. And the person listed as my medical contact? Darius. Not my cousin Marie, who used to help me with doctor visits. Not my church friend Dolores. Just him. Then she pulled out the facility intake form and showed me a signature that was supposed to be mine. It wasn't, it was my name, all right, but not in my hand, a messy copy, and she knew it. Camille said, "You didn't imagine nothing, Miss Eloise. They tried to erase you. And I ain't letting it happen." She took copies of everything and helped me write a letter to a legal aid center her cousin worked for, even paid to fax it herself from the front desk. She didn't owe me nothing, but she showed up anyway. And right then and there, I knew something Darius never expected. I still had fight left in me, because when somebody stands beside you, not out-talk pity but out-talk principle, suddenly, you remember who you are. Camille helped me send the letter off on a Wednesday. I remember because it was meatloaf day in the dining hall, and I couldn't bring myself to eat a bite. I sat in my room staring out that little window, just enough to see the sky but not enough to see freedom. The letter was short, straight to the point. I wrote, "My name is Eloise Jackson. I am 78 years old, and currently being held in a long-term care facility I never agreed to enter. I believe my son has taken control of my finances without consent. I need help before they erase what's left of me." Didn't know if anybody would answer, but they did. The next Tuesday, I got a call on the facility's main line. A woman from the Legal Aid Resource Center said she was sending someone. A young attorney named Jalen Morris. Said he was fresh out of law school, eager, and known for having a heart for the elderly. I didn't care how green he was. I just needed someone to listen. He came that Friday, clean cut with big glasses and a leather briefcase that looked too big for his frame. But when he shook my hand, he held it with both of his. That meant something to me. We sat across from each other in the little meeting room down the hall. He opened a notepad, ready to scribble down facts and dates, but I didn't talk right away. I just reached into a worn plastic grocery bag I'd been keeping hidden behind my books. Inside it were envelopes. Years of pension statements, receipts from bank withdrawals I didn't make, letters with my name spelled wrong, copies of things Camille had printed for me. I laid them out one by one like puzzle pieces. And then, finally, I slid over the last thing. A folded post-it note that Darius had once left on my kitchen counter the week before everything changed. It read, "We'll figure this out. You don't need to worry about the bills anymore. Just trust me." At the time I thought it was kindness. But now, I saw it for what it was, a goodbye dressed as help. Jalen picked it up and read it, then looked at the stack of documents between us. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just said, "Miss Jackson, do you mind if I make copies of all this and open a case file?" And I said, "I may be old, but I never stopped keeping receipts." That was the first time I felt the ground shift back beneath me. For the first time in months, I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting. They scheduled the hearing on a rainy Tuesday morning. I remember because I watched the water trail down the van window, like it was trying to wash away what he did to me. But I wasn't there to cry. I was there to speak. They wheeled me into that courthouse like I didn't belong there. Like I was too old, too tired, too out of place. But baby, I belonged there more than anyone in that room. Because every brick in that courthouse stood on the backs of women like me, who worked, raised, prayed, and got forgotten when we got quiet. When I saw Darius walk in, he looked just like a man who thought he'd won. Sharp suit, polished shoes, but no peace in his eyes. Not 1 ounce. He froze the second he saw me sitting there in that courtroom row. Eyes wide, mouth parting just enough to whisper something to his lawyer. I saw him lean in and say, "She wasn't supposed to be here." And that's exactly what he thought. He thought I'd disappear. He thought I'd just wither in that care facility and never speak again. But I was right there, breathing, watching, remembering. The judge took her seat, and everything started moving fast. Jalen stood up with calm hands and a steady voice. He walked the court through every piece of paper, every forged signature, every unapproved transaction, every financial lie wrapped in a son's smile. Darius's lawyer kept shifting in his chair, trying to object but tripping over his own words. When Jalen displayed a side-by-side of my real signature next to the fake one on the intake forms, the room got so quiet you could have heard my heartbeat in the wood grain. Then they played the facility's intake recording. The nurse saying, "Her son's wife said she has no capacity to understand documents." And the judge? She leaned forward like that was the last lie she needed to hear. Darius looked pale, sweating, like the weight of what he did finally started settling in his bones. And I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just looked at him. Not with hate, but with the kind of silence that says, you did this, you made this bed. Now lie in it. When Jalen gave his closing remarks, he stood tall and clear. He said, Your Honor, my client is a senior citizen, yes, but she is not invisible. She is not incompetent, she is not disposable, she is the victim of calculated betrayal, and today she's here to reclaim what's rightfully hers. And right then, I didn't just feel seen, I felt heard. When the gavel came down, and the judge ruled in my favor, I didn't cheer. I didn't jump. I just closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding since the day they took me away. It took a few more days for the paperwork to go through. The facility arranged for my discharge. Camille stood beside me when I left, and she hugged me like she knew what it cost me to make it to that day. I told her, I won't forget you. And I meant it. When I stepped back into my house for the first time in months, the air felt different. Still, but not empty. It felt like waiting. The walls hadn't changed, but I had. The first thing I did was call a locksmith. Changed every lock, every bolt, every keyhole that used to open freely to people who no longer had a place in my life. Then I called the bank and unfroze my accounts. I moved my savings, closed the joint account Darius had quietly linked his name to. Froze the credit lines he tried to stretch like rubber bands behind my back. Then I did something I should have done long before. I called my lawyer and updated my will, and this time I left Darius's name off the page completely. No clause, no second chance, no maybe he'll come around. I left what I had to my church scholarship fund and a young cousin in Atlanta who checks on me just to ask what I ate that day. It felt like clearing a garden of weeds you didn't realize were choking the roots. And that evening, I brewed myself a cup of tea, real strong, just how I like it, and stepped out onto my porch. My old porch swing was still there, creaking just a little when I sat down, like it had been waiting on me all that time. No music, no TV, just the sound of crickets and a soft breeze whispering through the trees. And for the first time, in what felt like forever, my name was still mine. Not altered, not questioned, not forged or used as a tool for somebody else's greed. Just mine. That porch swing didn't judge me. Didn't ask for proof. It rocked beneath me like it always had, steady, simple, faithful. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat in that quiet power that comes when you've lost nearly everything. And still found your way home. They thought I'd be forgotten. They thought they could tuck me away in a quiet room, give me a soft blanket, and let the world move on without me. They thought old age meant weakness. That silence meant surrender. That being alone meant I had nobody left to fight for me. But sometimes, the folks you love the hardest, the ones you carried through sickness, through storms, through long nights filled with prayer, sometimes they turn round and try to rewrite your ending. Try to make you smaller than you are. Try to take the story you spent your whole life writing and scribble their names all over your last chapter. But I learned something through all this. You still hold the pen. Even when they think they've written you out. Even when they think the ink's dried up. Even when they've walked away with your name on their lips and your legacy in their hands, you can still flip the page and start again. That's what I did. I took back my name, my home, my voice. Not loud, not flashy, just firm, quiet, clear. And if you're listening right now, if you've ever had to fight for your own name, if you've ever been betrayed by the same hands you once held, I want you to know something. I see you. I honor you. You matter. You're not invisible. And your story ain't over, not by a long shot. Tell me where you're watching from. Share your truth in the comments. And if this sat heavy on your heart, send it to someone who needs to hear it. Somebody else out there is trying to be strong in silence. Let me know they're not the only one. And if this touched you, I'd be mighty grateful if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay a while. Because around here, we don't just tell stories, we tell truths. Thank you for sitting with me.